Welcome to Kaywon Action Star. Watch.
Superior orders you to take a life, you follow it. They have your orders, not follow them.
The movie kicks off with an elite group of soldiers known as the Phoenix Team making their way through a tunnel for a high-risk operation. Their mission is to infiltrate the headquarters of a notorious arms-dealing syndicate in the country of CD. Moving swiftly, they take down a guard and gain control of the security cameras, turning the surveillance system in their favor. Meanwhile, their best snipers, Brandon and his partner Sandy, are stationed outside, waiting for the go-ahead from their teammates. Once the signal is given, Brandon and Sandy carefully select their targets and eliminate them with precision. As the Phoenix Team pushes forward, they storm the enemy stronghold, each soldier executing their assigned role with deadly efficiency. Their adversaries fall silently, but trouble brews when a mafia member realizes they are under attack. He races to inform his boss, Kovalev, a ruthless crime lord, about the sudden invasion. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Kovalev fires multiple shots into the air, triggering an alarm to summon reinforcements. Chaos erupts as his men scramble to counter the assault. The battlefield intensifies when two snipers from Kovalev's team take aim at Brandon and Sandy. Fortunately, Sandy spots them in time, and together with Brandon, they neutralize the threat. Desperate to turn the tide, Kovalev and his last remaining ally reposition themselves while putting up a fierce fight. Realizing he's losing control, Kovalev reaches out to his powerful ally, the country's prime minister, who secretly supports his operations. He demands backup immediately. However, the Prime Minister delivers bad news: reinforcements will take at least 1 to 2 hours to arrive. Cornered and running out of options, Kovalev activates a devastating weapon his men have been developing, making a last-ditch effort to destroy everything around him. Just as the Phoenix Team tightens its grip on the situation, a powerful shockwave rips through the room, sending everyone, including Kovalev and his men, crashing to the ground. 2 days before this intense showdown, a futuristic, dragonfly-like aircraft descends on the barren lands of Kavyard. Emerging from the craft is none other than Brandon, who has been summoned for a crucial mission. He is greeted by Commander Moise, who expresses his gratitude for Brandon's arrival, knowing that his legendary sniper skills will be invaluable. As they make their way to the base, one of Moise's men, Nova, shares a grim backstory about his homeland. Nova reveals that his father once ruled Kavyard but was betrayed and murdered by his own uncle, Lyagor Golov, the very man who now serves as the Prime Minister. Since taking power, the Prime Minister has formed an alliance with a Russian mafia leader to develop advanced weaponry that could pose a threat to other nations. Upon arriving at the base, Brandon reunites with Zero, an old friend who now heads the CIA's operations in the region. Zero briefs him on their mission to capture Kovalev, the arms dealer responsible for supplying illegal weapons to America. However, with Kovalev's growing influence and his alliance with the Prime Minister, the mission has become more dangerous than ever. Zero introduces Brandon to the team of soldiers who will carry out the mission together as an elite squad. Among them is Sandy, a promising but inexperienced sniper who has yet to take a life. Moise emphasizes the importance of training, so the team begins preparing for battle by simulating real combat scenarios. During a break, Sandy asks Brandon about the hardest part of being a sniper. Brandon tells him that taking a life for the first time is the most difficult challenge. It's something that stays with a person forever. Later, Moise and his deputy outline the mission plan, assigning specific roles to each team member. Proud of the group's potential, Moise officially names them the Phoenix Team. That night, as the soldiers gather for a meal, one of them asks Moise who his first recruit was. He shares the story of his deputy, Angel, a fearless fighter who once survived an ambush, fighting off multiple attackers despite being stabbed a dozen times at a petrol station. Impressed, the soldiers encourage Angel to show them her scars, and though shy, she obliges. Meanwhile, Brandon notices two soldiers always sticking together and curiously asks if they are a couple. They laugh and clarify that they are siblings, known as the Twin Axes because they rely on their signature weapons, two deadly axes, when all else fails. The following day, Zero finds Angel working on something and asks her about it. She reveals a sketch of a militant's face, the man responsible for her daughter's death. She vows to seek justice, explaining that the man is one of the Prime Minister's trusted enforcers, which is why she joined the Phoenix Team in the first place. As the final preparations take place, Moise delivers a powerful speech to the troops, reminding them that their primary goal is to capture Kovalev alive so he can be tried in an international court. However, if he resists, they are authorized to eliminate him. That evening, Moise checks in with Brandon, asking whether Sandy has what it takes to be considered an equal in the field. Given Sandy's lack of real combat experience, Brandon is skeptical and decides to put him to the test. That very night, Brandon takes Sandy to a secluded location and points to a man standing outside a nearby house, instructing him to take the shot. Sandy hesitates, struggling with the idea of killing someone without knowing the reason. Sensing his doubt, Brandon reminds him that overthinking is a sniper's worst enemy. Sometimes, pulling the trigger is just part of the job. Eventually, Sandy pulls the trigger, only to find out the gun was loaded with blanks. Confused, he looks at Brandon, who explains that it was a psychological test. If Sandy had refused to take the shot, he would have failed and been removed from the mission. The next day, the Phoenix team gears up for their mission. They load into their vehicles and move toward their target, leading to the explosive opening sequence of the film. The scene then jumps back to the present, with Kovalev about to unleash his powerful weapon. However, as the dust settles, it becomes clear that everyone, including Kovalev, has survived the blast. Out of nowhere, Zero storms in, pointing a gun straight at Kovalev, right as the entire Phoenix squad, including Brandon, rushes in. They demand answers from Moise about the explosion. Moise explains that Kovalev's weapon had just unleashed a powerful sonic wave, but luckily, no one was hurt. However, he warns that things are about to get a lot worse. The Prime Minister's heavily armed forces are on their way, and the sonic blast is about to trigger something catastrophic. Before they can react, Moise and most of the Phoenix team collapse, knocked out cold by the wave's effects. Panic sets in as they realize there's no stopping what's coming. The mastermind behind Kovalev's weapon admits there's nothing they can do. Only a handful of Phoenix members are still standing, and Zero immediately urges them to evacuate before the Prime Minister's soldiers arrive. But Angel isn't willing to abandon their fallen comrades. She insists they need to be buried properly. This sparks a heated argument between her and Zero until Nova steps in, suggesting Brandon should have the final say. After thinking it through, Brandon makes the call. They need to retrieve the weapon's server data. If they fail, the Prime Minister will finish developing the weapon, and entire cities, or even countries, could be wiped out in minutes. With no time to waste, he orders Zero and Nova to head to the lab while the rest move their fallen comrades to a safer place. Inside the lab, Nova examines the weapon's progress. It turns out the explosion they witnessed was just a small-scale test. The weapon is already 70% complete. Even worse, multiple nations, including North Korea, have already secured the materials to build their own versions. Zero asks if they can transport the entire server, but Nova shuts that idea down. It would take multiple trucks, which they don't have. That's when Brandon decides to upload all the data to a satellite, making it accessible to the United Nations. Destroying the lab now would be a bad move. They need to keep an eye on any future developments. Back at the base, Brandon gathers the team and lays out the plan. Angel is worried that the upload will take too long, especially with the Prime Minister's forces closing in fast. But Brandon stands firm. This is a risk they have to take. Everyone gets their assignments. Zero will handle the data upload, while the rest prepare weapons, traps, and defensive positions. Meanwhile, Nova attempts to contact Moise's allies via satellite, hoping for backup, though he's not too optimistic about getting a response. 30 minutes later, the upload is only halfway done. Brandon hands Nova a cell phone, explaining that the first call will detonate a bomb in a hallway, while the second one will blow up the lab. Everyone moves into position, bracing for the incoming assault. Angel, still mourning her brother's death, is determined to fight till the end, craving revenge. The enemy arrives in full force, breaking through their defenses with 2 armored vehicles. Despite being outnumbered, Brandon's squad fights back, taking down dozens of soldiers. During the battle, Hero runs out of ammo and is forced to retreat inside the base. Before she can get far, she's surrounded and pushed into the water. Thinking fast, she tricks her attackers into believing they've got the wrong person. Then, wielding her axe, she takes them down in a ruthless display of skill. Meanwhile, Zero, Angel, and Sandy are pinned down, their ammo nearly depleted. Just when it seems hopeless, Brandon swoops in from the rooftop, ordering them to fall back while he holds the line. Elsewhere, Angel finally comes face to face with the men responsible for her daughter's death. The two engage in a brutal fight, but in the end, Angel emerges victorious, avenging her daughter. Brandon and Zero cross paths again in the heat of battle. Zero directs Brandon toward the kitchen while he heads into an office filled with enemy soldiers. Brandon finds himself swarmed, and at the same time, Nova is ambushed by 7 soldiers. Feeling the pressure, Nova makes the call, detonating the bombs in the hallway. With the upload now complete, he yells for the team to fall back and regroup at the rendezvous point. Meanwhile, Hero finds herself surrounded once more. The lights suddenly go out, and when she switches on a flashlight, she comes face to face with enemy soldiers. They attack, and despite fighting with everything she has, Hero is ultimately killed. Elsewhere, Brandon pushes his team forward, determined to get them to safety. But as he makes his escape, he's shot, stumbling to the ground. Seeing this, Zero rushes to his side, promising they'll make it through. On another front, Nova takes multiple hits, but Sandy and Angel quickly take down his attackers. Eventually, the entire squad regroups at the rendezvous point. Nova, barely holding on, hands his phone to Brandon, instructing him to make the second call to destroy the lab. Unfortunately, Nova succumbs to his injuries before Brandon can carry out the order. With no other choice, Brandon commands his team to prepare for the final explosion. As enemy soldiers flood the area, Brandon orders his troops to fall back to the tunnels while he stays behind to cover them. But Zero refuses to leave, reminding Brandon that he was the one who convinced him to take this mission in the first place. He's not going anywhere. Brandon then turns to Angel and Sandy, telling them they must deliver the server data to the United Nations. It's the only way to stop the Prime Minister's plans for good. With no more hesitation, Brandon and Zero charge into the open, taking down enemy soldiers one after another until they run out of ammo and are completely surrounded. Just when all hope seems lost, reinforcements arrive, wiping out the remaining enemy troops. It turns out Nova's call for backup wasn't in vain. Moisa's allies had received the message and arrived at the last moment. They quickly rush Nova to a hospital, discovering he's still alive. With the mission complete, Brandon and Zero return to America. There, Sandy and Angel express their gratitude, relieved that the Prime Minister has been brought to justice. Even better, his successor is none other than Nova, who is still recovering in the hospital. The Phoenix team's mission was a success, but the battle has left scars, both visible and hidden. Brandon looks out at the city skyline, knowing that while this war is over, another could begin at any moment. With that thought, he walks away, ready for whatever comes next. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to this channel for more beautiful recaps like this. Put down your comments below to let me know what you think about the turn of events in this storyline. And also give my video a thumbs up to further motivate me. Share too for others to enjoy. Until my next recap, cheers.